Peaches consistently rank at or near the top of the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list every year. They are the most pesticide-contaminated tree fruit sold in American grocery stores. The moment you take that fruit and seal it in a can with high fructose corn syrup, an industrial BPA-based lining, and a supply chain that stretches to processing facilities in China with no independent audit trail, you have turned a summer fruit into a chemical delivery system dressed in a wholesome label. But open the wrong can, and what you are really eating is pesticide residue concentrated inside the can, endocrine-disrupting BPA leaching from the lining, corn syrup processed to approximate the sweetness of ripe fruit, and, in some brands, additives and colorings the label calls natural, while the chemistry lab calls synthetic. If canned peaches are a regular part of your diet, every brand on your shelf matters. We investigated 9 of the most popular canned peach brands in America and held them against 4 standards: BPA disclosure, sweetener source, pesticide supply chain transparency, and additive honesty. 9 failed, 2 passed. Here is exactly what we found and why it matters to everyone who has been trusting these labels. At number 9, Del Monte Yellow Cling Peaches. Del Monte is the most recognized name in canned fruit, a brand that has occupied the top of the canned goods aisle for multiple generations of American families, carrying with it an implied promise of wholesome, simple food. The heavy syrup version that most American households grew up with contains high fructose corn syrup as the primary sweetener, delivering over 30 grams of sugar per half-cup serving from a product most consumers regard as a fruit option rather than a dessert. Del Monte also sells light syrup and juice-packed varieties, but the light syrup still uses HFCS, and the juice is pear juice concentrate rather than peach juice, meaning a different fruit's sugars coat every slice. The can itself has a documented problem. Independent testing published by the Environmental Working Group found BPA in the lining of Del Monte canned fruit products. BPA is a synthetic estrogen mimic classified as an endocrine disruptor that the FDA acknowledges leaches from can linings into food contents. The leaching rate increases with storage duration, temperature, and the acidity of the food inside. Canned peaches in syrup are acidic. They sit in warehouse storage for months before reaching the shelf, and months more in your pantry. In 2019, Del Monte settled a class action lawsuit for $1.5 million related to deceptive freshness and natural labeling on their canned fruit products. The settlement required no admission of wrongdoing. The can linings did not change. The HFCS did not change. Del Monte remains the most trusted name in canned peaches, while operating with one of the lowest levels of ingredient transparency of any brand reviewed here. 3 generations of trust. A can lining and sweetener policy built for the company's bottom line, not your kitchen table. The average American household keeps canned peaches for 12 to 18 months in the pantry before consuming them. Every month of that storage is additional time for BPA migration from the lining into the acidic syrup surrounding every slice. Del Monte knows this. Their toxicology team knows this. The shelf life printed on the can is not an assurance that BPA exposure is negligible for the full duration. It is the time frame within which the fruit remains commercially acceptable, which is a different standard than the time frame within which BPA transfer into food is minimal. If the category leader hides that much behind a trusted name, surely a brand with heritage American sourcing does better. Not even close. At number 8, Dole Peach Slices. Dole shares the top of the canned fruit aisle with Del Monte and shares virtually all of the same formulation and sourcing concerns. Their syrup-packed peaches lead with HFCS, delivering over 33 grams of sugar per half-cup serving. Their juice-packed version uses pear juice concentrate. Dole sources a significant portion of its canned peach production from international processing facilities, including operations in Thailand and China that face less rigorous pesticide and sanitation oversight than domestic U.S. facilities. Dole's BPA exposure is well documented. A 2018 consumer advocacy analysis found BPA in Dole canned fruit products at levels consistent with endocrine-disrupting risk thresholds established by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Dole has announced transition programs toward BPA-free linings, but independent verification of completion across their full canned peach lineup has not been published in any consumer-accessible format. The Dole name on the can tells you nothing about the farm where the peaches were grown, the country where they were processed, or the pesticide history of the fruit before it went into that can. Dole's marketing shows California orchards and fresh-picked fruit. The supply chain shows Thailand, China, and industrial processing facilities that the label design carefully never mentions. For families who have trusted Dole because the name feels American and fresh, the trust was placed in a logo rather than in a verifiable supply chain. BPA, HFCS, offshore processing. That is what the Dole name is protecting in this aisle. When Dole markets a juice-packed variety as a healthier alternative to heavy syrup, the implied health improvement is a reduction in syrup concentration, not a change in BPA exposure, pesticide sourcing, or country of origin. You are still eating from the same BPA-lined can, still consuming peaches grown under the same conventional pesticide standards, still relying on a supply chain that Dole does not make visible to the consumer buying the product in good faith. The lighter syrup is a sweetener substitution. It is not a safety upgrade. For consumers who switched to juice-packed Dole, believing they were making the meaningfully healthier choice, the switch addressed one concern and left all the others entirely unaddressed. One less variable, all the others still in the can. That was bad. The next brand brings in a corporate parent with one of the most documented food ethics records in the industry. At number 7, Libby's canned peaches. Libby's is owned by Nestle, the Swiss food conglomerate with a product portfolio and an ethics record that spans continents. The Libby's canned peach line uses the same HFCS-based formulation as Del Monte and Dole, the same industrial BPA can lining, and the same offshore sourcing model without meaningful origin disclosure to consumers. But Nestle's ownership adds a dimension that Libby's cheerful label design never raises. A 2021 internal Nestle document leaked to the press acknowledged that the majority of the company's portfolio, including products under the Libby's name, failed to meet even basic nutritional health criteria by international standards. The document described the products as being in a category the company internally recognized as not healthy. That assessment came from inside the company. The labels continued to use words like wholesome and natural. Nestle's approach to canned peaches under the Libby's brand reflects the same cost efficiency and marketing investment that their internal documents acknowledged was detached from nutritional reality. The HFCS sweetens the product cheaply. The BPA can lining costs less than the alternatives. The brand name provides the trust that the ingredients do not earn independently. Nestle knew. Their own document said so. Your Libby's peaches are still on the shelf with the same ingredient profile those internal documents described. The label calls them wholesome. The company's own internal analysis had a different word. What that 2021 leaked document revealed is that Nestle's internal nutritional assessment framework, the one they use to evaluate their own products, flagged more than 60% of their portfolio as failing to meet basic health standards. Libby's canned peaches fall within that assessed portfolio. The standard the company applied internally is stricter than FDA minimum requirements, which means Nestle's own teams reached a negative assessment that U.S. regulators would not require them to act on. They disclosed the assessment in an internal document that became public through a leak, not through voluntary consumer transparency. The shelf product did not change. The marketing language did not change. The internal assessment was a corporate self-reckoning that stopped at the conference room door and never reached the label. A lot of consumers switched from name brands to store brands, thinking they were saving money on the same product. They were not buying the same product. At number 6, Hunt's canned peaches. Hunt's is produced by Conagra Brands, one of the largest food manufacturing conglomerates in the United States, whose portfolio includes dozens of brand names across every aisle in the American grocery store. Their canned peach products follow the same HFCS and BPA template as their competitors in the category. Hunt's does market a California-grown sourcing claim on some of their peach products, and California sourcing sounds like a reassuring quality signal. It is not the clean origin story the label implies. California Department of Pesticide Regulation data shows that conventionally grown peaches in California are among the most intensively pesticide-treated tree fruit crops produced in the state, receiving multiple synthetic pesticide applications across the growing season, including organophosphates, fungicides, and insecticides that remain as residues on and in the fruit. Conagra does not publish third-party pesticide testing results for Hunt's canned peaches, and the California sourcing disclosure tells you where the fruit was grown without telling you what was applied to it before it went into the can. Peaches absorb pesticide residues through their thin skin in ways that washing and canning do not remove. A California-sourced conventional peach in an HFCS syrup inside a BPA-lined Hunt's can is a California pesticide residue in an HFCS syrup inside a BPA-lined can. The origin matters. The pesticide history matters more. Check your pantry right now. If you have any of these brands, what I am about to tell you explains exactly why you need to replace them. At number 5, Great Value canned peaches, Walmart's store brand. Great Value operates as the lowest cost option on most grocery shelves and runs on the most opaque sourcing model of any brand in this investigation. Great Value canned peaches are manufactured by contract processors whose identities are not disclosed to consumers and whose agricultural sourcing practices are not independently audited in any publicly available format. The product quality depends on which contract manufacturer produced a given batch, a variable that the label gives no way to identify or evaluate. Great Value syrup peaches contain HFCS as the primary sweetener, meeting or exceeding the sugar content of the major name brands. Their can linings use standard industrial coatings without BPA-free certification. Country of origin labeling for canned fruit under U.S. regulations is limited, and Great Value's packaging makes no voluntary disclosure about where the fruit was grown or which country processed it. Consumer Reports has documented quality consistency issues with store brand canned fruits, including batch-to-batch variation in pack weight, syrup concentration, and fruit integrity that reflects the variability inherent in multi-manufacturer contract production. For families choosing Great Value as the economical pantry fruit, the price is low and the accountability for what you are buying is lower still. The savings come from somewhere. That somewhere is the supply chain transparency you are not getting. Great Value peaches are regularly on the shelves of the largest retailer in the world, which gives them enormous implicit authority as a safe, Walmart-vetted product. But Walmart's private label approval process for Great Value is about cost compliance, labeling legality, and minimum regulatory standards, not about organic sourcing, BPA-free can linings, or independent pesticide testing. The Walmart name behind Great Value provides marketplace reach and consumer trust. It does not provide the ingredient oversight that consumers reasonably assume that trust represents. The cheapest option in the aisle has always had a reason to be cheap. Great Value is not an exception to that rule. The peach on the label looks ripe and golden. The supply chain is invisible, and that invisibility is a feature of the pricing model, not an oversight. If this helps you shop safer, hit subscribe. It is free, and you will never miss an investigation like this one. At number 4, Happy Harvest canned peaches. Happy Harvest is a discount private label brand sold primarily through Aldi stores. The name evokes summer abundance and agricultural wholesomeness. Supply chain analysis of Happy Harvest canned fruit products has traced sourcing to processing facilities in China, a country whose canned food export record has been flagged by the FDA through import alerts citing citing pesticide residue violations and unsanitary processing conditions at specific facilities. Happy Harvest packaging does not disclose country of origin for the fruit or the processing location. When the FDA places a facility on an import alert for food safety violations, products from that facility can still reach American store shelves under private label brands whose packaging provides no way for consumers to connect the product to the flagged facility. The EWG has found that canned peach products sourced from China consistently show higher pesticide residue rates than domestically sourced equivalents, reflecting the regulatory gap between U.S. and Chinese agricultural standards for export products. Happy Harvest offers low prices by accepting the sourcing practices and processing standards that domestically produced USDA-regulated fruit would not pass. The discount is the price of that gap. Your savings at the Aldi checkout are borrowed from the safety verification you are not getting at the processing facility. The name says Happy Harvest. The supply chain says something more complicated. 4 brands in millions of American pantries right now. The next one built its reputation on California heritage. The ingredient list is a different story. At number 3, S&W canned peaches. S&W is a legacy brand that has positioned itself on decades of California fruit heritage. The label invokes American agricultural tradition in a way that Del Monte and Dole, with their obvious corporate scale, cannot quite match. The S&W name carries a sense of small batch quality that the product inside does not reflect. S&W's parent company is Del Monte Foods, which acquired the brand in 2004. The S&W and Del Monte product lines share a supply chain, meaning that the S&W premium positioning, expressed through slightly higher retail pricing, is not supported by ingredient differentiation. The same HFCS sweetened syrup, the same BPA can lining considerations, the same conventional pesticide-treated California sourcing. 2 brand identities, 1 pipeline, 2 different price tags. When consumers reach for S&W instead of Del Monte because S&W feels more artisanal or more Californian, they are paying more for a marketing narrative that the ingredient list does not support. The California heritage on the label is real. The implication that heritage translates to different or cleaner ingredients than the corporate brands is not. S&W is Del Monte in different packaging at a higher price. The legacy brand name, the same HFCS, the same BPA, the same conventional pesticide-treated sourcing without independent third-party testing disclosed to consumers. The premium you pay for S&W over Del Monte buys you a different design on the outside of the can and nothing different inside it. If you have been choosing S&W over the house brand because it felt more authentic, you have been paying more for the feeling, not the product. Number 2, Kroger brand canned peaches. Kroger is the largest traditional supermarket chain in the United States, and their private label products carry the institutional trust that comes with a store of that scale and presence. For millions of American shoppers, Kroger's store brand products feel like a safe, vetted choice, backed by the implicit assurance that a large and established company would not put something harmful on its own shelves. Kroger's canned peaches use HFCS in syrup varieties and pear juice concentrate in juice varieties. Their cans have not been independently certified BPA-free across the product line. Kroger has not published third-party pesticide testing results for their canned peach supply chain. A 2022 consumer advocacy investigation into private label canned fruit found evidence that Kroger's store brand products source from overseas processors in some cases, including countries whose canned food safety records have been flagged by FDA import alerts. Kroger's response to transparency requests has been to reference compliance with FDA regulations, a standard that permits every one of the practices described above without additional consumer disclosure. Drop a comment below if Kroger store brand peaches are in your pantry right now. The institutional size of the chain does not translate to sourcing accountability. The brand feels safe. The sourcing accountability ends at the minimum legal requirement. Kroger's private label program is designed to maximize margin by sourcing from the lowest cost. Compliant manufacturer available for each product category. Canned peaches are not a category where Kroger applies premium sourcing standards. They are a category where Kroger applies cost efficiency. The consumer buying Kroger store brand peaches receives a product that meets FDA minimum compliance thresholds, a standard that explicitly permits HFCS sweetening, BPA lining, conventional pesticide-treated sourcing, and overseas processing without additional consumer disclosure. Kroger's size is an argument for its market reach, not for its ingredient oversight. The label carries the Kroger name. The product carries the ingredient profile of the cheapest compliant manufacturer Kroger found to fill that contract. Drop a comment if you have been trusting the Kroger name to mean something specific about what is inside. We have reached number 1. This brand markets itself to health-conscious consumers as a better alternative to the major grocery brands. The ingredient list reveals what better actually means here. At number 1, Comstock or Wilderness canned peaches. Comstock and Wilderness are sister brands under Tree Sweet Products, positioned in the baking and pie-filling section of the canned goods aisle, but purchased widely as pantry fruit. Their ingredient panels represent the most extensive departure from simple fruit of any brand reviewed in this investigation. Comstock peaches routinely list high fructose corn syrup, citric acid, modified food starch, artificial flavors, and, in some product formulations, Red 40 artificial coloring. Red 40 is a petroleum-derived synthetic dye that the European Union requires to carry a mandatory printed warning on food packaging because of its documented association with adverse behavioral effects in children. The FDA permits Red 40 in American food products without any warning requirement. The presence of artificial flavoring signals that the peach flavor of the product has been supplemented with laboratory-synthesized compounds, which, in canned fruit, indicates that the processing and storage conditions have degraded the natural fruit flavor to a point where it requires chemical enhancement to remain palatable. This is fruit that has been processed so thoroughly that the original flavor must be added back artificially, and then the color must be added back artificially on top of that. A petroleum-derived dye in a can of peaches is not a minor labeling detail. It is the ingredient choice of a manufacturer who has prioritized product appearance over consumer safety in a category where consumers are specifically told the product is fruit. Comstock's modified food starch is another signal of processing intensity. It is added to stabilize the syrup texture and prevent separation during extended storage, which means the canning process has broken down the natural texture of the peaches to a point where a separate industrial additive is required to make the product look like it belongs in the same product category as the fruit you started with. When artificial flavor restores the taste, Red 40 restores the color, and modified food starch restores the texture. What exactly is left of the original peach in the can? The label says peaches. The ingredient list describes a reconstruction. That is number 1 on this list, and it is on shelves in every American grocery store right now. In the baking aisle, in the canned fruit aisle, in the discount section, sold to families who have never read past the product name on the front. 9 brands. 9 gaps between what the label says and what the can contains. 2 brands closed that gap entirely. The first clean pick is Muir Glen Organic Peaches. Muir Glen is a USDA-certified organic brand whose canned peaches are grown in California under organic farming standards that prohibit all synthetic pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, and genetically modified organisms. Their cans are BPA-free, a commitment Muir Glen established in 2011, while most of the industry continued using BPA-lined cans and continues using them today. The sweetener is organic cane sugar, a recognizable single-source ingredient rather than a highly processed corn derivative. A half-cup serving delivers peaches that taste like actual peaches, with the natural acidity and sweetness that real, ripe fruit produces, and that HFCS-sweetened commercial brands can only approximate. The organic certification is verified by independent third-party auditors operating outside Muir Glen's corporate structure. For peaches specifically, which rank among the most pesticide-contaminated fruits in conventional agriculture, the organic certification is not a premium label preference. It is a meaningful safety distinction. Muir Glen is owned by General Mills, a large food corporation, but the organic certification requirements are enforced by auditors who exist precisely to ensure that corporate ownership does not compromise the standard. The price per can is higher than any conventional brand reviewed above. The difference represents the actual cost of growing, processing, and packaging clean fruit inside a safe container. For anyone who has been trusting the conventional brands to deliver what the label implies, Muir Glen delivers what it states. The second clean pick is Woodstock Organics canned peaches. Woodstock is a smaller, certified organic brand committed to minimally processed, transparently sourced organic products. Their canned peach ingredient list contains 3 items: organic peaches, water, organic cane sugar. Nothing added, nothing synthesized, nothing needed to compensate for what the processing removed. BPA-free cans, organic certified fruit, and a supply chain that is independently audited under USDA organic rules. Independent consumer testing has found Woodstock organic peach products to have among the lowest pesticide residue levels of any canned peach product commercially available in the United States, an outcome that reflects what happens when you start with organically grown peaches and add nothing artificial to compensate for the gap between what the label shows and what the canning process leaves. The cost per can is higher than Great Value, Happy Harvest, or Comstock. The comparative cost, when measured against BPA exposure, HFCS intake, synthetic pesticide residues, petroleum-derived dyes, and artificial flavorings, is not higher at all. Woodstock is what a can of peaches looks like when the goal is delivering fruit, rather than delivering the appearance of fruit at the lowest possible production cost. 9 brands. 9 labels doing a different job than what you put in your grocery cart for. Your canned peaches should taste like peaches because they are peaches. Subscribe now, and if you are watching on TV, tap your remote right now so you never get blindsided again.